And Humphrey Bogart. Did you do Humphrey Bogart?
Yeah.
Bogart?
Yeah, he was actually a couple blocks from here.
Huh.
Went to Trinity School.
Huh. So much to learn.
Maybe the threshold question though is whether we want to do secondary street namings at all. And then the question is then how do we do it if we want to do it? I actually have strong reservations. Even doing secondary street.
Everybody talks against them and then they're all approved.
That's because people come to us with there's sort of a very sentimental pressure,
Yes.
emotional pressure to do it. We got the family here, and if we had a policy, then
it's more than
no, we're not going to do it.
it's more than sentimental pressure. Anyone who's come to us has a great reason to do it. No one's come to us without a spectacular person who, by all means, deserves to be honored by the community.
I'm wrong. We did turn one person down. We turned the ad agency guy down. He wanted us 67.
Right.
Anyway, but
So-
yes.
but-
But it's rare. It's very
And we
rare.
also-
And even those people, there's a good argument.
Suggested locations to different locations as well.
We also turned down a Beetle because the
Yes,
people in the block and his family did not want it.
that's true.
And if you notice in these guidelines, they have one of the boards has a clause in it that if the family objects and there isn't a large percentage of people on the street that, on that particular block, that you have to have a certain number of. Yeah.
The other signatures on the petition must have a large 70.
So it seems to me anonymous sector and give some personality and give some history to a street and to a neighborhood that would otherwise just be another anonymous street in a very large city with zillions of people. So I just think it gives some character, and I would be all for keeping, some sort of structure, of course, but certainly home naming being something that gives us something nice to think about.
But I feel very uncomfortable at the emotional pressure that's placed on here. And I think it's interesting that the person needs to be deceased for at least 5 years is on line 1.
But that's
CB.
That's just their CB.
No, that's us. That's our proposed. Aren't these our?
No.
These are Manhattan. Oh,
These are from other
2012.
boards.
These are from other boards.
No.
This comes from
This
ours.
came out last month.
Oh, I don't
These
know.
are these are the guidelines from 2012.
That was what Roberta and I put together about 5 years ago.
But I mean, there are exceptions because
Nobody waits 5 years.
nobody waits 5
Except
years.
Norman
and-
Rockwell.
And Norman Rockwell was definitely more than 5 years, but we had street names for 2 children. And that was,
But that's when the emotional pressure is highest.
but it was also, it wasn't a bad thing to do it. It was, it was good because the big community came
All
together.
I said was I feel very uncomfortable under the emotional pressure.
There's also a massive amount of arbitrariness. We've got the Upper West Side is remarkable. We've got so many incredible people, and it seems to be that there are thousands of people whose family could make a very good case for why a street should be named after them.
But they don't. I mean, they're all-
But are we naming streets based on those
Somebody smart
people
enough to
whose
come here and ask.
families come here and ask?
But is it always the family? Sometimes it's
Or
the school,
whoever it is.
neighborhood
But
association.
it's just this arbitrariness of
But the city is an arbitrary place. It isn't always the same on every block. It isn't the same in every, in every day. So
Right.
I still am very interested in having something that historically marks somebody who was interesting and part of the community and who gave something to the community. And I don't find it emotional as much as I find it historical. And I think that, yes, people are invested in their family member. We all get that. But the question is, did their family member contribute to the greater good of our community? And if we say, yeah, we know this person really did. That's Sue Rabati. She was great. She did wonderful things for our
Well,
community.
I am pretty good, but I'm not looking for a plaque.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe
Plaque,
building.
yes.
But anyway,
And we can honor them by making the streets more dangerous.
There's going to be a certain level of arbitrariness no matter what. Justice has some degree of arbitrariness. Any process that involves human beings is going to, it cannot be
But
perfectly
this
objective.
is why
The
we like
point
some
is-
guidelines.
Right, that's why if we're going to go ahead, we want to reduce the
Well,
arbitrariness.
I don't think there's a
The others have
Because if we decide we don't want them, we don't need guidelines.
Yeah.
Right.
But
No, and I agree with Ken. I think
Florida
that's the
does
first
them and doesn't
question.
have guidelines. So,
Well, I myself be in favor of
Where
it.
does it say they're too dangerous? That's the reason that they decided not to do them.
By definition, street signs are there to provide guidance to cars, and when
That's
you're
not
driving
the only reason
down,
street signs.
I think it
Well,
guides to
cars
bicycles.
and pedestrians.
so I'll rephrase that. We decided as a board, as a committee and then as a board, that our number one mission is safety. And putting up signs that are taking people's eye off of the information they need to know when they're driving is a distraction.
I don't.
I don't know that that's what
But,
drivers
I mean,
are
I
doing.
drive all the time in the city, and I drive through lots of places where there's double signs. One is the main, and one's the regular. If you're driving, the streets are all numbered, so you know you're going from 1 to 10 or whatever. You may be looking for a specific street. Well, I'm going to turn on 43rd Street, but you'll know where 43rd Street is. I don't find that distracting.
And
I'm
why have
thinking about
why have
something-
street signs at all if you don't need them?
Well, you need to be able to orient
course.
people as to where
Of
they are.
course.
What if you're a visitor to the city? Somebody says,
Not yet.
somebody says, go to the corner of 84th and
Yeah, so
and
you
Central
know,
Park West, and you go to the corner and it says Ely Wiesel.
it's going to say both.
It says 84th on
It
top.
says 84th on top, it says
Usually,
so.
but sometimes they
Always.
fall off.
Oh,
It's confusing.
I mean, if you knew how many people now refer to 7th Avenue in Harlem as Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, it's amazing.
Well, that's a little
Yes.
different.
It comes up in my GPS that way.
So
And then
apropos of the threshold question of whether or not we should do this. By the way, I think the safety argument, although I don't subscribe to it, I think the safety argument is not drivers. I think the safety argument is you're lying bleeding on the street. You look up and you're trying to say, I'm at Humphrey Boulevard, and the ambulance doesn't know where to go. That's the safety argument. I don't subscribe to it because in every instance I've ever seen, West 103rd Street is right on top of it, so you got to be a little bit challenged not to. Okay.
also you have to speak a little more clearly or the ambulance wouldn't understand you anyway.
And speaking as a guy who had an ambulance take 45 minutes to get to me, I'm not sure that the name of the street was actually the impediment. But I think that the threshold question that if we were to entertain not doing this anymore, after we've had 30 or 50 of them in our district already, that will appear to be arbitrary in and of itself. And I would be loath for us as a board, it's your committee, not mine, but I would be loath for us as a board to draw that line now after the horse gotten out of the barn, taking the cow with it, and et cetera.
and it's
Unless there were a viable alternative. And while we have an alternative, it is not yet viable. The alternative is to place plaques on a building in lieu of the secondary street name, which is, I think, a better solution overall, but it has a number of encumbrances, one of which is that some huge percentage of our district is in landmark districts, so you need the approval of the Landmarks Commission to do it. You also need the approval of the homeowner, who don't always approve.
And you need money for the plaque.
And then the plaques are expensive. That's the
How
other
expensive are they?
Several thousands of dollars. And
and
oftentimes,
stuff and try to read them and end up smashing into somebody, so.
well, typically they are on side streets, so, yeah, okay. So,
People aren't
until-
walking in
until-
1,000.
Bicycles, I've seen
So just to
stuff.
conclude, just unless and until there is a viable alternative,
On
taking
the
what I
sidewalk.
would view to be an arbitrary change in
Arbitrary.
a lot of expressions of the things that we tend to simply formalize a process that has been in rough shape already.
Drew is next, and then
Yeah, I think
Mark.
a lot of what you said was what I was going to say, but I think listening to this discussion, I was going to say, I think somebody should figure out how many possible street corners in Community Board 7 there are. Like if every single person went and tried it in every single intersection, that would probably be too much. So, but what I would say is, people, you're never going to stop people from wanting to name a corner, right? So, and you shouldn't, because I really think that you're empowered to say, you know, no more corners named. So, having said that, you do have to then establish a simple set of guidelines. So, with the hope that it will stop a bunch, and then the other hope would be that whoever made the gauntlet of requirements might actually be considered, and also you just have to make sure that somebody's got to do a map of where all the street names are, and so you don't have to.
So Drew, if you think that,
Wait, can I get my issue addressed?
no, I have a question for
Yeah.
you. If you think that having every street corner is too many, but you're in favor of having them, why do you think that every street corner is too many, and what do you think is the right threshold of what's right and what's not too many?
I think that's a valid question, but I would say that the answer would be, let's find out, because I think it's a beautiful answer. Like, let's say that in Community Board 7, there are 5,000 intersections, I think.
600.
250.
600.
Wow, Jesus. Okay, there are 600 intersections. So I think that is a reasonable thing that you could say. If we have 600 intersections,
and 4 corners on each of them.
Only 2.
when they
Only
can't,
2.
are you gonna, wait,
Oh,
but
you're
you
thinking of
can't
all
name
these.
an intersection two different, you can't name an intersection two different.
Why not? No, you're not naming the
We
intersection.
actually,
It's just a little sign you put in the pole.
We usually
You could
name
name the
the
corners
street
on the
adjacent
side
to
of
where the
71st
person
Street.
lives
And
or
you can name the
works,
west.
See now,
like a principal.
like what I was gonna say, yeah, so you have 16, you could draw, and Brendan, we're human beings, so everything's gonna be somewhat arbitrary, but you could draw a reasonable limit and say, listen, it seems like maybe no more than a quarter, I made that up, a third of the intersection should be named.
We actually had an application for several for the same block, and because we didn't want it to look like a doctor's single,
Yes.
we did not, we did first come, first served in
Yes,
that case.
and that's, okay, there's item number 1 or 7 for your list.
Let's move
What
on.
first come, first served?
Richard, and then, yeah.
So, moving away for a moment from naming streets after individuals, what if an individual or an organization came to you and wanted to put up a street name to make a political point? The reason I bring this up is I was driving up 3rd Avenue last week, and around 70th Street, 71st, 69, somewhere, I saw a street sign that said, United Jerusalem Way. Now, the issue of United Jerusalem versus East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem is a highly partisan and highly controversial issue all over the world. So somebody or other got them to like really weigh in on one side of it. And it seemed to me that community boards ought not to be drawn into stuff like that. If somebody wanted to name something in that sort of a way as opposed to for a person, what would the board's attitude?
Another criteria.
First of all, Richard, we don't know that Community Board 8 actually voted for that. That could have been a city council thing, or we don't know from whence it came.
Right.
But I don't know how everybody feels.
Roberta?
Roberta.
One of the things I was thinking of, there are probably certain places where we should not have street signs. For example,
Secondary street sign.
secondary street signs. Well, I'm thinking some of the blocks on Broadway, I'm thinking, where the bow tie. Those are. But I think, I just wanted to throw that out.
We should make some block.
I think there's no answers back in the line. And the reason is that Drew mentions is that we can put a limit on how many we're going to have, and that's reasonable. It could be 10%, in which case we would only have 60 in the district, or 15%. And I think also we should think about this is really a privatization of public space. And it's not only confusing for tourists, visitors, but we're taking what is public space and we're ceding it at public expense to some private individual.
You always put a limit on how much time you do it. Just like you need resident, they used to
Well, he was a week. I'm in favor of that.
We do. We have a 10-year time. That's item number.
I don't really think,
We have a 10-year time.
I don't think it's confusing to tourists at all. In fact, if anything, I think the tourist is going to say, I'm here to learn about your city. Well, this Miss So-and-so and this Miss So-and-so.
And how are they
And
going to
Google it.
Yeah.
And how are
And
they going to?
Google it and find out.
That's one thing. If we're doing
While they're
this,
driving.
it has to be on CB7's website with a guide showing who these people were. Otherwise, it's great to see a name, but not everyone knows those folks.
How are they going to know to go to CB7's website to
I
find
would
it?
know that, but you can Google the person's name very easily and it might go back to CB7. But I just think that tourists, I know when I travel, and I travel a lot, that if I see a plaque or if I see a sign, I stop and I want to know something about it. Maybe I'm more curious than some people, but I think most people, if they're traveling and they're trying to learn something about a new city or a new place, that's really interesting and maybe even exciting. On the east side, there is the Greek Embassy on East 79th Street. The street is named for Archbishop, who's a really fascinating person. And one day I Googled him because I really wanted to know what made this particular religious person more exciting or more interesting than my favorite rabbi, who doesn't have a street named after him. So I think, again, that it adds texture and interest in history for the city.
So I totally agree with that, and that's why I'm completely in favor of plaques or something that has more context on the person. And like the landmark plaques that give a little history.
But are you going to ask somebody to spend thousands of dollars and then hope that a building will allow you to put on?
Well, put it on the sidewalk. There are the signs on the sidewalk saying why it's a historic district. That's a city sign. That's not on a building. Those sure there are the maroon signs.
There are.
Yeah, they're the landmark signs, the historic district signs that talk about the district. I'm all in,
Brown metal signs.
yeah, I'm all in favor of that, and I think having those.
And those are
Well, how much are street signs? Do we know what the cost is?
those are
Just because we're not
They said they're
paying.
cheap.
What's
They
that?
said they're cheap. Easy to put up, easy to take down, they're cheap. Those that when
They're
we
really
asked.
cheap.
I just think those are more distracting, frankly,
Yeah.
if they're driving.
But they're on side streets, and they're.
The font is a size that you cannot see when you're driving. You have to be standing, maybe I'm showing my age, you have to be standing right under it to be able to read it. But no, you can, it's
I've
totally,
seen them, they're in the
you
middle
cannot
of
read
the
them
lot.
when you're driving.
No, but you might be distracted by them because, oh, what's that? You know,
There's something like the mentioned like controversy right now. That's just one way. Well, let me just tell you, in France, there's a suburb of Paris called Saint-Denis. So a decade ago, they named a street Rue Bumia Abu Jamal, named after a controversial, journalist activist, whatever, who been in jail in Pennsylvania. He's done for that. There's a lot of controversy on that case in the House of Representatives back in the 6th. Voted
Law. We'll do a couple of interim votes. Who have of no community board, we do have the right to do it. We never would be against approving secondary street names. It's not that we will stop secondary street names, but as a community board, we won't recommend that streets have secondary names. So we're just doing an informal vote. It's not a resolution. Who thinks we should continue approving secondary street names and have guidelines for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who's against? 2. So it seems that we should have some kind of guideline. Without having a show of hands, I assume most people think we should have guidelines as opposed to how we've been doing it. I think so. Is there anyone object to that? Okay. So now we really narrowed it. All we have to come up with now is a guideline. Sure.
Don't mean to be redundant here, but I just read an article the other day about schools. Because I can't afford lunch for them. We expect $1,000 back.
No,
United schools are not doing that.
no, we're not.
Okay, I just read that.
No.
A plaque would be, a plaque would be $100,000 for that.
Okay, that's not.
Street signs are key.
Okay. So I think we could all express, I think, what we think would be important in the guidelines. I just want to be clear. I think one critical element should be evidence of support from the people or businesses on that street. I don't think we should even agenda the secondary street name.
One very other important thing. The proposed secondary name has to have a direct relation to that particular block.
Yes.
So
that's a no-brainer.
I just want to say, there are 2 levels of, I don't want to make this more complicated than we need to. If we can have criteria where we will not even agenda it, and I think that support on the street and some link to that location, you don't even get on the agenda. It's not that that's something to consider. Is everyone okay with that?
Well, with one exception. Well, it could be just something of national interest.
But then how would that national interest relate to that particular location?
That's what I'm saying. It may not. It's just like, how do we decide, how was it decided that Alan Clayton Public would be just a boulevard? And a different boulevard,
Unfortunately, that was.
No, you're not. That's not. The thing is that, I agree with that, but, there may be exceptions to it.
Well, you can always, guidelines are guidelines.
Right.
There are always exceptions to the rule. The guidelines change.
So we have those 2.
We have 2 good ones.
But wait a second, your first one, demonstration community support, what does that mean? You're talking about petition signature?
I would say petition signature.
Well, why don't we require it?
No, I
For
don't think
instance,
so. I think-
Different size block.
Because a lot of
Why don't you pick the 4 or 5 things that you want, and I'll write the language based on these other boards, and then
then we
you
can talk
can
about.
you can all have a copy, and then you can talk.
well, I think we should require, let's say, 100 signatures as a threshold.
I agree.
Criteria.
It's just too arbitrary otherwise, and the
I've thought
emotional
about that.
pressure Sue talks about.
Because some streets have enormous apartment buildings, and other streets are just row townhouses with commercial establishments on each end, and there may not be 100 people on the street.
Well, if you look at some of the
Well,
guidelines,
if the
that's
person
why
has
they.
affected 100 people who would support it, and they don't, then that's, then
Yet they're comfortable coming to us and asking it.
Because it's a totally different thing. This is a, community board, we have.
how do you suggest they demonstrate support by the
I
community?
think it should just say that they need to demonstrate support. And how they demonstrate support is up to them.
That's not a
They might
guideline.
be
That's not
20
really
people.
I think you really need petitions. We've had, well, I think most of the, other than maybe Ellie Wiesel, every street name I remember has had made petitions.
And some of these other boards.
Jason, you have a question?
No, I wanna add to the point that you guys were bringing about renaming secondary streets, that you guys
We're
If,
not renaming secondary streets. We're secondarily naming streets.
exactly. Okay, if a person wants to submit a request, that person not only has to bring like support, that person has to demonstrate with physical evidence, right? Written in paper, what that person has done, right? And having that in hand, you guys could decide if approve it or not. Because you guys will have in paper, like, let's say a basic history of that person, if this person, did serve, good for the community, and things like that, should be considered before making a decision.
So, to the point of demonstrated support, I think that's a valid and important one. What I would offer is that the guideline be that there be a statement that there be demonstrated support, and you could even say, including without limitation, one or more of the following, which could be, I think 50 signatures is a lot, but some number of signatures of your choosing, or the affirmative vote of a block association or community association. I would actually throw in the 3 business improvement districts in there, not necessarily as determinative, but certainly supportive evidence that if one of the bids were to say, you know, the Doug Griebel way is going to be, you know, an appropriate way to honor this one standard.
But if we throw that in and it's a block or a location that is not in any bid,
it's just
one of the things.
It's sort of like the passport application. One of these, or 2 of those, or 3 of them, and there could be others. There could be the affirmative support of either built in, not necessarily a signatures on a petition, but businesses in the neighborhood that come together, whether or not there's a bid. You could give alternatives that go to the point of demonstrating community support, and then you as a committee, when the application comes before you, would be privileged to say, that's not enough, or I would prefer, you know, in a block like this where there are big buildings, I think 40 signatures is not enough, but there has to be some validity to it.
anybody else? I think we can wrap this part.
Yeah, I've got one more criteria, which is, and since Roberta said, you know, we wouldn't want to put them on Broadway if there's too much going on, I would say we should have a criteria that if it has had more crashes.
Let me ask you a question before you proceed. When you say leave a sign, not in the street.
Exactly.
I mean, we should ask the precincts, do you have any kind
I
of
see people stopping the most beautiful
evidence
one.
that secondary street signs cause accidents?
Also,
Do we need-
there's no shortage of distractions on New York City
Yeah.
streets.
Exactly.
No,
Why would we have
one person's name is not going to cause chaos on the street. There's already a
Chaos.
lot going on.
total chaos?
Why don't they take down all the numbered signs? You know, they used to be on every, you know, there's 4 corners there in the intersection. Now there are only a couple. I know, I swear to God, I spent half of my time looking for what street I'm on, and I live here.
It's on Southeast.
But I
Why
like
did
that, you finally got to that down the store to that.
Yeah, what do we have?
Executive
I live
dash
here and I,
Okay,
I make
so far we have three, I'm just summing up what we said. We have 3 criteria. X number of petition signatures. That's number 1. Number 2 is clear support from that street. Again, the petition signatures can be from the surrounding area. And the 3rd, the person has a strong relationship with the street. Okay.
Do we want to set a maximum number, not number, but percentage?
Yeah.
Because, or are we willing to contemplate running eventually on it?
No, Ken, because our guidelines that we passed last year or whenever it was, sunsets these after so many years. I forget, I bet it's 10 or 5
Do they get
years.
removed?
And then you review them to see if there's still support for them.
Every time. Yes.
So there is a
So
sunset.
sunset also, right?
We have that in our current guidelines.
Yes.
And Andrew, do you want me to take a stab at writing all this stuff
Associated
with how you have to, because
That's a tough one.
what they have in the other guidelines that I didn't include in this is the way, if I wanted to go before CB3 and get a street naming, there's an application I have to fill out that tells me all the things that I have to do, including, bringing in the information about
This resolution would serve that. The guideline itself would serve that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying if you want, I can include that in.
Once, if and when this is passed by the full board, it would go on the website, and then anybody that is interested would be referred to that. And then with
Perfect.
Dave,
So you're saying there's a sunset of 10 years and all these street namings?
from the time they were voted in.
I don't think. Okay, everyone? Moving on.
Wait, I'm sorry. Vote on the September board meeting? Aren't we having another meeting to discuss this?
September committee meeting.
Okay, he said the September board meeting, October.
Committee meeting, and then presumably going to the whole board.
Sorry, didn't mean to pay attention.
Don't do it again. So is Nicole here from, hi Nicole, great. And is Brandon here? Terrific. So we're very fortunate that we have two of our representatives, state representatives here, Brennan Ward of Senator Marisol Alcantara's office, and Nicole Migliori, did I pronounce that correct? Migliori? Oh, okay, of Assembly Member Danny O'Donnell's office, both of whom district encompasses 96 and Riverside. You may recall that when we did our petition to DOT, one of our major hopes and priorities was to restore the 96th Street exit to the Henry Hudson Parkway for southbound traffic. Currently, everybody here, I'm sure, knows if you're going southbound and you want to exit, and you want to go to the east side, for instance, you have to make a zigzag on narrow residential streets instead of a straight path through the transfers. It puts a lot of excess traffic on 95th Street, on 93rd, and 94th Street, and it's traffic that's needlessly put through this back and forth to get to its destination. So Henry Hudson Parkway being state highway requires state approval. So I've asked these two terrific representatives to come and tell us what the next steps would be to try to get this moving forward. So whoever would like to go first, we would really appreciate your take on this. And don't all scream at once.
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
Can you guys stand up and stand somewhere so we all can hear you? Because not all of us are equally hearing able or loud speaking like that.
Brad, you want to come forward?
Sure. So I feel a little embarrassed, but I want to say I am not sure. I was coming here to gather information about what the CB wanted to do with this exit, bring it back to the senator, and sort of work from there. So yeah, that's the best policy. And happy to
When I
bring in.
emailed, I told them exactly what we were hoping, but that's fine.
Oh, my apologies. I will double check that, and I hope.
So Nicole from Danny O'Donnell's office. My understanding was also that we'd be listening, not actually telling you what the
to vet your
which
emails.
is totally fine. I mean, my understanding is that it's not just state, even though it is controlled by the state. Usually the highways are, there's some intersection between city, federal, and state, which makes it really complicated.
Well, we know city DOT would have to go along with this, but we understood from city DOT that there's a state component to this.
Right.
You know,
I'm just warning you that
9A being a
that
state highway.
usually all the city, the state, and the federal government kind of point fingers at each other whenever you try to do anything with the highway. So it's going to be a battle.
Well, they managed to mess
I
it up.
was gonna
Yeah.
say, how did they
Yeah.
use it?
Right.
They managed to screw it up. They should manage to
Unscrew it.
unscrew the mess that they made. And
Does
it's-
anybody know the reason why it was changed? Because maybe if we knew why it was changed, then we'd know how to unchange it.
Yes, the reason was that the reason was that you could be coming southbound on the Henry Hudson,
Right?
go under that series of curving underpasses,
Yes.
and then have to enter traffic at 95th
And Riverside.
to try to then scoot around to 96.
Parkway did meet federal guidelines.
They made it a lot better than it had been.
Yes.
It's not that they screwed it up. It was really bad,
Better than it-
and now it's just like
So if we just
it
made
needs to be
one
tweaked.
adjustment, you don't think it would screw up any of the good things that they did?
It
So to
depends
do it,
on
you'd
the
have
route,
to-
on the route of the exit.
You'd have to channelize it.
You would have to channelize it, yeah.
But it's a good question that needs to be considered. Is it?
I'm not just review what it is you're actually imposing. I'm not clear on what that.
We're proposing the restoration of the 96th Street exit for southbound traffic exiting the Henry Hudson Parkway. Right now, northbound traffic can exit on 96, southbound must go to 95th.
And the
Which
problem
means-
with that is,
The problem with that is you're putting a lot of traffic on 95th between Riverside and West End, or West End and Broadway, which are then gonna, because they want to, their destination might be an East Side Point or somewhere else, go up to 96 anyway and then swing around. And it's putting needless traffic on narrow residential streets when 96th Street is a wide street. Yeah. Rich.
I remember as a driver, when you could enter West Side Highway 96 in Riverside, I do not remember problems. And frankly, the situation you have now, Helen Rosenthal was talking about like a barn stand thing for 95th and West End. Yeah, because it's such a mess. And you know, with the kids in the school and the school has that construction work out in the street, and the next you cross the intersection and buses pile up and waiting between Broadway and West End, and they've got all that construction on the street on West End. If drivers going down Riverside Drive could, or up Riverside Drive, could get on the highway there and not have to come into West End and make those turns, and nobody understands the yellow light and the red light, it would relieve so much of that pressure. And I do not remember it being a problem when you could enter the West Side Highway from 96 and Riverside, and this would take so much traffic off of
Well,
West End.
Riverside Drive is elevated at 96th Street, so I don't know how you could swing that.
It used to
into
be
the
a
Parkway.
drive.
You used to be able to get on the West Side Highway from Riverside Drive at 96 or 95th.
95th, yes.
Okay, so 95th.
That's what they were
And
talking
then
about.
That was such a sharp entrance, Richard. That was, you were joining a fast-moving lane. From it, against federal funds, and they said you gotta end that. whoever, all of a sudden, because it's curved or side drive, you could easily not stop in time. So we've asked for some safety measures prior to them restoring this, like a gradient, so the cars would know that something is happening. Better signage, stop sign or pedestrians ahead, slow down. We didn't get any of that yet either. But we want to know what the steps are vis-a-vis the state to try to get this moving. Does your offices have to write something to state DOT, or do we write to you that to state DOT to tell city DOT we've got this moving in the state already?
I think it'd be helpful if a letter came first from you. So we can.
Your office,
Yeah.
to your principal.
We have passed a resolution as a board about a year ago.
Yeah, but I think something a little more detailed might be in order.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Maybe we can include some of those.
And we'll include via why we think this is important, what the safety implications are if this isn't done. And, it's needlessly putting cars in places that they don't have to be, actually. We can get you when this was changed and why.
You can start by just fixing the road.
Well, we're going to ask this. We're going to once again ask City DOT for things to make the current setup safer, because it is not good right now. Thank you so much. We will definitely get these letters out to you, and thank you for coming. Sorry it took a little while, but.
No, sorry.
Okay, now we have the issue of the Citibank stand in front of 585 West End Avenue, which we have gone out and visited, and which you have posted notices about.
Yes, we have.
Give us an idea of how many and where you posted them, so we'll have that for the
We
record.
post them on every corner of that intersection, is that right, Chris? Yes, so that all sort of stakeholders would have notice of what those of us would want to change.
Can you tell us when that was done?
That was done 5 days ago, or approximately, or whatever we got it was over.
It was Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
Every corner of that intersection were one of the intersections where the
same
both sides.
So for me on that,
Take your message.
if you park,
Hey, sorry, Ken's not here.
if you park a car where you're proposing to move it, the only indication, the only information anybody would have, being alerted to that fact, that they may lose 4 or 5 parking spaces there, is one notice on a lamppost at that corner.
right there on the corner, and then it's on all 4 corners of that T, and which is adequate notice because basically anybody's looking to park around that neighborhood, including me. We're circling the neighborhood, we're circling all these streets and intersections, looking for spaces. And remember,
You're getting out and looking, reading the lamppost?
oh, yes, because we all live here, so we're the stakeholders. And the people who live here, as much as we drive here, we really walk a lot more than we drive.
Well, I'm just thinking that there is a construction shed. where you're proposing to move it?
Uh,
Right?
yeah, that's
I'm
temporary.
sorry, I know.
That
But
was-
it might have been better to put the signs all the way along the construction shaft.
Right. Well, I think
Because
we
then
wanted
you
the
might
people-
have really gotten the attention.
Well, I
of
think
some
we
of the
can't miss the sign, and also we wanted the people in the building right there to see it. And when you walk out of the building, it's right, you know, within a few feet of the entrance. Because those are the people who, just like us, more likely to have an issue. And so we put it,
These are the 4 buildings that are really involved. In other words, you have a corner, 4 corners, and on the side of each building, the sign is there. So when you go to the east side of West End Avenue, you have 2 buildings there. The signs are on the corner for each building. The same thing, the signs are on the west side for each building.
Has the synagogue been contacted? The synagogue that's on 88th Street, just east of Western Avenue. Have they been contacted?
not by us, if you contacted them.
Okay, because I was under the impression that the proposed move was to Riverside and 88th Street. So I didn't think the synagogue.
The walking tour was pretty clear.
Yeah,
The
we
other
all,
side of West End.
yeah, Riverside was never in
Riverside,
consideration,
there was another one too close to it.
because there's one on
I thought
Riverside.
there was this whole thing about the bike rack should be at the top of the
The
street.
head end of a block
Right, right, right.
versus the tail, right? So that you would see it as.
Which is why we haven't, why we've asked that it be moved to where we're asking to where it.
Okay, but the synagogue has not been contacted.
Have you contacted them? I have.
No, I didn't think it was,
Just the signage was.
Signage ought to do it, that's what generally works in the neighborhood,
But,
missing children.
the reason why 88th and Riverside was not considered, but the other side of West End was because there was another city bike stand there, which I have recently learned is about to be moved and without notice to us. Penny notified me, or somebody,
I got a
Marissa,
notice,
you-
only because I use that city bike station, so if you're a user of the station, they'll let you know.
Nice. And where,
That
it's
they're
going to
moving the
89th, is that it, or?
So
Yeah, 89th.
it's on 89th and Riverside, and they're moving it to 91st and Riverside as a permanent location. I guess it was moved temporarily for whatever reason. So you're
I mean,
going
it had been
to
at 91st?
it's the one that had been at 91st,
And they got moved.
and it got moved, and now it's getting moved back. So you're losing them on, I'm losing them on 89 and Riverside.
It's funny how you can view that.
88 east of West End not only already has spaces taken away by the synagogue on one side of the street, but by the hardware and woodworking store on the other side.
What if they take?
Well, he's just saying that there's commercial.
There's like half the block says no parking during the day. because
It's not half the
It's a
block.
loading, unloading for that store.
It's not half the block.
They have their own-
And in response, if I might respond to that, because we've already been through all of this, but what I would say is parking has never been a moving argument, a moving argument for this issue. Parking is something that the city has decided is something that we could give up in order to have actual use and a more green city. So be able to argue that someone made about traffic jam. Side street entrance to a large residential block. That should be the only argument. Safety, not, gee, I wish I could park my car. We haven't made a gee, where I wish I could park my car argument, and I don't think anybody should be able to make that argument.
So with that in mind, and with all the concerns I've been hearing on multiple occasions in the site tour, I think moving it, I'm concerned that we're playing whack-a-mole and that we're just going to move it and get a group of other people. Putting that aside, I think moving it across the street does make some sense. But separate from that, every argument I've heard about the number of people coming into this building on a side street, the number of elderly people who are using Access-a-Ride, the number of emergency vehicles, says to me that we need to remove parking in front of this building so that there's access for all these vehicles.
Well, that's what I was
Totally
saying.
separate from the city bike.
Wouldn't that solve the traffic problem?
No, I think what would solve the traffic problem was to move the bike racks to the east of.
Well, why wouldn't that solve the traffic
we
problem?
went
That's
out-
my
we
question.
went
Because
out-
then you would be getting, then you would truly be discriminating against car owners in the city. Because then you would.
You
be
just said
removing
parking's not a
Can I-
factor.
Can I finish my sentence and then you can respond? You would be removing parking from where the bike rack is and parking from in front of the building as well, which means you've now truly encumbered residents
That
doubly.
So you
Where
would-
in fact, the more as the Constitution, when you're making arguments about restricting the rights and privileges of citizenry, what you really want to do is do it in the least intrusive way. The least intrusive way to do it is the way we've come to, which is if you move the bike rack across the intersection, then you don't lose any more parking and you don't encumber an exit to a building. Because why? There is no exit to the building on 88th Street east of West End, because that building's exit is on West End. And also it addresses, may I continue? And also just because, we've been trying to do this now for I don't know how many months, so bear with me. Because I really don't like that we're rehashing the issue again, because we hashed it. And this
We have to
meeting was
understand
supposed to be, huh?
If we don't understand it, we can't help.
Well, really? You don't understand it? Okay, then we'll do the meeting all over again from two meetings ago. Let me finish. No,
I have
no,
here.
no. Sit and let me finish. So, if we have, if the bike rack is east of West End, then you're not blocking the exit to a building as you are where it currently is. And remember, the most powerful argument, and still is and always will be, is that when you have a bike rack at the beginning, what I believe it is called technically the top of the block, then vehicles, mostly commercial vehicles, turning onto that block where they can see that it's blocked now. Because any double parking, which we all know happens a lot in the city, that occurs if it occurs near the bike racks, will make the street impassable because the bike racks are at least 20 inches wider than a parked car up against the curb. So,
you also know that because of that, that doesn't allow double parking because it hinders the flow. What trucks, and I have pictures, what trucks do, they park on the rack, on the bike rack. In other words, they just go right over those poles and they park right there to service the buildings, to service the West End 585 and to service the other buildings. I have pictures that you can see.
And there-
Calling on
not have, for having a bike share station after the building, which is that when they turn on 88th Street, they're whipping around the corner. They don't know that there might be somebody just getting on a bike right there, which could be happening. And I think the DOT thinks about that, because if you think about it, I can't think of one instance, at least in this very area, where there is a bike share station at the bottom of the block.
Well, that's not true because where it was in 87 was at, I guess we're calling it the top of the block. In 87 is where it
No,
got from.
no, it was at the same place where
Right,
yours
which is,
is.
but remember that's
That's
the
the
west
top.
back.
At the top of the block, right. You're proposing moving to the bottom.
Now we're proposing to move to the top.
To the top of the block.
You want to cross West End Avenue and put it in a place where somebody can make a right turn
Right.
into somebody getting on a bike.
Right, yes, right, just as somebody traveling northbound on West End and taking a left onto 87, where the bike rack used to be, would be doing the same.
Okay. But
So,
leaving
no,
that,
so clearly, the city, the DOT will definitely put a bike at the top of the block, so that's not an issue.
no,
And they've already
I
determined.
just,
Another very critical thing
leaving
is.
that up.
Wait,
It's
please,
not-
please.
I
You
have-
have to wait till you're called on.
See the clock
I'm
right
not
here.
helping your
On the
cause by
narrative that is parked on West End Avenue. Please, and a picture of two men carrying a gurney to come into the entrance of 585. I think it's very critical. It's very serious, and furthermore, every second counts. And there are a lot of old timers in my building. I'm one of those, okay, a senior citizen. And I certainly don't want my ambulance to be parked on the other corner of West End Avenue.
We're interested, but you'll have to
And
wait
so,
till you're called on.
excuse me, I'm gonna sit down, I'm not gonna
No,
say another
you have to
word.
wait till you're called on.
We have heard those concerns, but I
I'm
am,
all out in
I am
here.
completely
Excuse me, I
unpersuaded.
didn't hear your comments. I have a little problem of hearing, so forgive me, I'm sorry.
I am unpersuaded that it's the bike share station that is causing the problem.
Can you speak up for Catherine,
we-
because she is hard of
We
hearing?
went out there,
Can you speak a
I'm
little
sorry.
we went
louder?
out there with
I'm
it.
hearing. I'm not asking for feeling sorry for you. I'd like for you to talk louder,
I'm
project your
talking
voice.
as loud as I feel comfortable talking. We, or maybe we can get the mic, we have to get the mic. But we went out there with tape measure, and the bike share station is about the same width as an SUV parked there. If you had SUVs parked there, chock-a-block, they would take up no more space than a bike share station.
That is simply not true.
And about,
That is
and only about
absolutely not
5%.
true, and we did not do that test,
We,
and you know that that's not true.
we went out, our committee went out with a tape measure. And we
That's
had,
not true.
Nikki, you were next. Nikki,
All right.
please,
Can we,
and then
I think
Melissa.
that we all have to take, first of all, I understand completely how you feel about this. I really think that there should not be this conversation. First of all, people who need access should get access, which means where the bike stand is now is the wrong place. Clearly, you don't have the access that you need for your building. Secondly, it does not impede the use of the bicycles, which is the purpose for putting it on either of those corners, so that people can get to them easily and use them or put them back when they're finished.
compromises the safety.
I'm not convinced of that because you can't show me any study that says so many people got hit or killed because they were putting their bike into a bike station and a truck turned into the street. There's no study. There's no proof. I don't think, do any of us have any, terrible stories to tell about people getting hurt?
More of an
No.
intuitive
So
thing.
as- all you're doing is moving it for the convenience of the people who live there. It does not inconvenience the people who use the bicycles. And in terms of, these made up stories about people moving, a truck somehow being a bad driver and running into killing somebody, truck stop. You have to stop your car or your truck before you turn, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to turn safely. And nobody just goes and turns into a block. They're going to see what's there. They're going to see the bike stands because they're really obvious. Yeah, anything that's there. So the point of just having it moved to so that it doesn't inconvenience the people who live in the community, and at the same time does not inconvenience the people who use the bicycle, that should be enough.
And it's temporary even there because
Because they might
when the
move it.
construction is done in 87, it's scheduled to go back there.
Then this should be the
At us for multiple meetings about which you brought a lot of pictures. Why?
They came down West or 88, and I mean, before people started to figure out, oh, we're just going to drive over those posts. You know, you can't double park. If
it's a corner building with an address on West End, I'd imagine that emergency vehicle is going to come on West End to 88th Street rather than going all the way around to Riverside. But even if you didn't have the bike rack there, even if you have an open space, it makes a lot more sense to stop at West End than to go on all the way to Riverside. So, no, I'm talking. I have the floor. I'm talking. So number one is I would think that emergency vehicles are going to go to West End anyway. Second of all, the pictures you just showed us now of the trucks double parked in the where the bikes would go, if you had a row of parked cars there, which is what you'd have without the bikes, then they wouldn't be able to do that. They'd be parked in the middle of the street and be causing more of a problem than doing what they're doing right now. And third is you brought in pictures of a double parked truck that was actually double parked before the bike rack. So once again, you're identifying an issue. There's not enough flow on the street, and there are too many trucks double parked in front of your building. We need to clear spaces in front of your building. I agree that it's a good idea to move the...
We've lived there for 30 years, whatever. We've never had a problem. The only reason we're taking everybody's time and with such, venom and bird is because something changed. And you know what changed? The bike racks ruined the traffic flow on our street. We don't care that it's a bike rack. We care that it's making it so nothing can get through our street. I mean, we're not making this thing for no reason. It's the bike racks are too wide. I don't know why they didn't design the bike racks at a steeper angle. Then we wouldn't be here, but they didn't. So they're 20 inches, if not wider, than a parked car. We already ascertained this. I hate to I got one.
We're waiting for like 10 minutes.
I mean, I just wanted to make a comment. I don't think this is a spurious request on the part of this block. We've come here many times. We've all taken a look at that block. I understand the concern of the committee might be to set a precedent about moving these bike docks, and that's a real concern. You don't want a flood of requests to do this. But I do think that this has been a request, they've been consistent in their requests. They've come with materials. I happen to live a block away, so I can actually confirm what they're saying. But regardless of that, the worst possible outcome would be to remove parking on that side of the block. You then remove more parking than you need to. And we know that parking is a concern. There's no reason to remove parking. It's not onerous to move the dock across the street. I do think you need to check in with the adjustment, and make sure that they don't have issues with it. I think that's an important contact to me. But I do not think this is an onerous request. It doesn't make it more difficult for city bike users, which I think is a real concern. City bike station, you need to make sure you're not creating an undue
Not real far from where it was, yeah.
Right.
But Marissa, this couldn't be a precedent setter because unlike anywhere else, DOT moved this without any notice to us. If they had given us some notice, we could have gone out and scouted and shown them.
But I understand that concern. I don't want that to block what I think is a really valid request from this block. I don't think it's spurious. I don't think it's anti-city bike.
We haven't had a million of these.
It's not a difficult request.
This is
not a specific. Yeah, and I don't think the solution is to remove parking on the north side of the block. That's really the worst possible solution for the residents of that area.
Thank you. Jason, and then Mark, and then Richard, and then Richard.
Question to you guys.
Yeah.
When you took those pictures, when was it and at what time was it? Because if you don't have those details present, these guys will not consider anything. Because you guys are showing the same images.
They're dated.
Dated?
They're dated.
Perfect.
But I want to address that. You're right. But because we've been so concerned about this for many, many, many months, and this is not our first time here, we have many pictures from every season at day, night, morning, and like that. But you're
I
right.
totally understand your
You're right.
point, and Andrew, we should tell DOT if they're gonna do this, they should let you guys know at least
We already did a
We did that
resolution.
last
a 30 or 60-day period.
If only if one of our
We did.
resolutions led to all of a sudden DOT listening, but, Mark?
Thank you. I think Ken's point about the right-hand turns is a good one, but I think it can be solved. I think this would be a good place to put some sort of curb extension or other street treatment to increase the turning radius so that you on northbound, if that's a
Look
significant
at all the
concern.
zillions of cars that haven't been smashed into, that have been parked there for 50 years.
True. But my point is that I think we can grant the relief you're looking for with a modest adjustment to the proposal.
Well,
And I was originally a fan of the name. It convinced me that and
place for temporary people to pull.
and loading zones, I think they go on avenues, not on side streets in
Why
general.
not?
But that's the issue here, is that the building is facing the side street instead of the avenue.
I think the argument of trying to do the least intrusive change for a temporary structure is the right one. And so I think that this, I think you're on the right track.
If I can just respond to your proposed solution of putting a curb extension, we're talking about a change that's going to last about a year at the most. It's going to go back to 87th Street, and then we're going to be talking to people on West 87th Street. Believe me, they're going to be there. And if we move it to the east side, we're going to be hearing the people, and we're going to hear a different set of people are going to be in this. Believe me. And we don't know what the
We're here now.
We don't know what the expense is to move one of these things. And certainly, if you factor in putting in a temporary curb extension, that's more expensive. Only for 1 year. Do we really want to do this? Just to protect parking?
The construction itself is an issue. A curb extension is another story. But I think they move these all the time.
They move them very easily.
Yeah, very
But
easily.
I think there's a reason why they don't put them at the bottom of the block.
They are,
They don't want people running around.
Richard, you were next.
So just for some perspective on this, DOT without any prior, I've said this before, any prior notice to our block, put in a bike rack on 87, going west from the corner of Amsterdam. And so traffic coming up Amsterdam first has to deal with making the left turn past one of those protected bike lanes, and then immediately the bike rack is next. And we have a very active loading zone further down the block. My building is a whole square block. It's got far more people in it than anyone in this building is talking about. They put it there. They didn't consult with anybody. So, this is like every street. It seems to me where one is put in could make some sort of argument.
Any other? That's right next to the PC Richard loading zone, technically.
Right.
So that wasn't a great location.
Yeah, so
But Howard has an idea.
And CBS both have big guns loading right into
Howard has an idea. Wait.
Howard has an idea.
It's the first one.
We'll speak to BJ and then reconvene before our next meeting, and finally,
We will speak to the synagogue.
BJ is the synagogue.
It's not a takeout place. B'nai Jeshurun. And we'll get their take on what
They're the biggest stakeholder in that.
It will end up in front of them, guys. Guys,
We're not talking about a permanent solution.
No, we're not.
So we're talking about.
Sue has a question.
Right, I didn't hear what this woman was saying. We're not talking about what?
we're not talking about a permanent solution, we're talking about
One
1
year
year,
solution.
where it's a synagogue would be nice and
I don't know
helpful.
what the schedule of that construction. I
Life
think
would be so much easier, but having the loading, the bikes next to your door makes no sense to me. None.
Sue?
I'm just looking on Google Maps. I apologize to say I did not take notice of where the synagogue was. Is it?
It's on the north side. West end.
On the north
It's
side of
between
88.
mid-block. It's on 88th Street.
Mid-block. So would the bike rack
Mid-block.
end up in front of the synagogue?
No.
No.
And what's
It
that?
ends
What's
before
it?
it.
West of the sign.
So what's that?
They're a big stakeholder on that block, and they have parking restrictions.
We just want to make sure they're
Busy
notified.
one day.
They should,
They
they
just
should be
need to
on.
be notified. But we noticed, we
And they
gave
should
them
be
notice,
driving
just
to
like
get
they
there
did.
anyway.
I doubt that they are.
How's that?
Okay. I just think that there's been an awful lot of time over a very big.
Pending approval. It's not the right. The issue is it. And it's. You don't have to get
They have a veto.
Have a veto, we just want to talk to you.
Yes, they should, be- and they have the.
I don't know
notice.
if we need a
They're not
resolution, but that's clearly how.
Well, you need something to go to DOT.
Yeah, I think we need-
No, we do the
What is the
resolution,
letter?
if Renee Jesslin raises all sorts of issues, we're not gonna have a resolution, but if they don't raise all sorts of issues, we will in fact have a resolution. So
Why
at
can't
that
we
point,
have a resolution whether there is
Everyone's
issues or
Everyone's
not?
saying
So bring in new issues.
everyone's
It would be
speaking up.
better,
Roberta, and only Roberta.
it would be better to do something tonight if you're gonna do it.
Yes.
Right.
Because if you hold it over to your September meeting, it's not gonna come to the full board until October.
By which point it'll move back to
We
87.
have a plan. We'll meet before the September meeting so we can bring it up at the September meeting. We'll meet a half hour before. We discussed that. That's
This
part of
time-
my proposal.
This is the second time this was supposed to be the
So there
end
will be no delay.
this time. If we, yes, it is.
There will be no delay in any event, Drew,
Is it
because the full board doesn't actually meet until
Right,
right
there's no
after
delay.
Labor Day. So there will be no
There's
delay.
no delay. None.
Can we say this, that resolve that the bike rack should be moved to the place that we've all discussed?
To the
On
east side
the
of
east
West
side of
End
West End
Avenue,
Avenue.
either the north or
Yeah.
south side, pending,
And unless there is vociferous disagreement by the synagogue.
I don't want to.
I
No,
know, the
no.
vociferous, yeah.
No.
I don't think I don't care how vociferous it is. If they don't have a legitimate claim, it doesn't matter.
All right.
I think we clearly have a way to proceed here. All systems go unless they come up with some concern or
Good.
legitimate
That we haven't considered.
reason, yeah.
That we
And
haven't
chairs are
considered
always
already.
privileged to withdraw a resolution
I'm sure.
if you.
Okay,
if
so
that
let's go on.
occurs.
All right, I think that works.
Okay, all those in favor?
Community,
What?
community first.
It's better. Committee first.
Committee first.
All those in
I'm
favor?
not, I'm happy.
I'm not sure what the resolution, I don't know who said it, I'm not sure what it is.
And why did you call for a vote?
You don't need a vote.
We don't, I don't think we need a vote on
You
this.
don't need a vote. You
We're-
just bring it, you have a pre-meeting on September, whatever the date is.
Right.
And,
We'll have the information from
and it will
BJ, if we don't hear
it
from
will
them,
be
it's
on
a
the,
slam
it will
dunk,
be on the agenda for the full board
yes,
under transportation.
with no delay.
And
And can we make it very clear to BJ, this is a temporary?
I'm
sign?
sure we'll make it very clear what the situation is. Yep.
September 5th.
Can we, as a courtesy to this group, let them know if there's any reason that we've heard from the synagogue that would
Absolutely.
be a problem, so that they get, so that they.
Just like
Right.
BJ should
You
know
get
what
an
what
alert.
they're saying,
An
they
alert.
should know what BJ is saying.
So do you know
Yes,
who
yes.
to speak to?
We
to
do.
speak? Okay, so you will get an
We've
alert if
been at
there's
it for a
some
while.
new issue.
Is there any rate over?
Some folks have items of new business, I believe, that they would like to bring up. Dave, you want to go first?
I have a couple of things. First of all, at our last meeting, DOT was here and said, this is in regards to having day school and parking regulations in front of their school.
No, that was.
DOT said all you needed to do was write a letter,
Oh.
and then they'll resolve that issue. And the issue, of course, is that the school gets let out at 2:30 during the winter time, so that a sign can be put there. Parking is legal. The second thing is the Manhattan.
What was the school you were just referring to?
Manhattan Day School. That's I think you to
Talking about construction containers?
construction containers. We have the Ascot Hotel has parking spaces for their work people as opposed and as well for their garbage, and that's absurd.
As far as the signage in front of the day school, when Colleen from DOT was at a previous meeting, we brought up the issue of during the summer, is it appropriate to change some of these, no parking school signs when there is no summer school, and maybe it's different for Manhattan Day School than it would be for a public school, but Colleen was pretty definitive that a lot of these schools do have summer school, and that's why.
And let's just, all I'm concerned about is the Friday one at least, and that should be something that just, makes no reason why there shouldn't be. In fact, most of the schools prove that. And then.
One second, be right.
I don't want to get something out of it. How about you?
That's the sit at the table.
And I cannot hear that. Next time.
It's soft spoken, but.
You two are the best people. Something should be done about you.
Always can move up. Don't even think that you have.
Next time comes to me.
You could sit right
You
here.
could sit right here. Sorry, I didn't think
I'll
of it.
remember that next
I
time.
didn't think
Thank you.
We've had spotty luck with the microphone, but feel free to move closer. We can move closer to you if necessary. Don't worry about it. It's not a problem. Thank you very much.
And then,
Don't worry about it. I'm sure. It's on the agenda for September, and that's as soon as we can get it on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So the last item.
Yes.
In my note is, at a meeting a while ago, Roberta proposed that you allow the Hotel Ascot to have parking spaces put aside for they were doing the renovation of that apartment house, and they were asked if projects camped outside in the construction material. So they took up, I believe, about a quarter of the block on 76th Street, and then in order to give parking to the people working in the building, they took up the same amount of spots on 75th Street. And that's just to park workmen's cars. Doesn't seem to make much sense. We should be giving people that kind of.
76th Street, west of Broadway?
What did they put out cones? Did they put out cones or something?
No, well, they just closed off the whole area. And then in the morning, when their trucks come, they just open it up and their trucks park there, so they don't have to pay for the meters. And they take away spots from the neighborhood.
They should not be allowed to do that.
Oh, Roberta, I mean, that was something that I spoke about years ago.
Yes.
It's been there over a year.
It's enforcement, double parking on our major commercial streets, is, they've got to deal with the city so that they get a miserable little fine, the national brand, so, this is all enforcement.
But just in terms of that, particular statement. Just so you know, at the 20th precinct, we asked the question, why is it that when you stop trucks for West End Avenue, you stop giving tickets? And they said that when they go to the court to adjudicate the tickets, the judge tosses out the most expensive ones and leaves just a small fine there. And so at the 20th precinct, we asked Linda to bring someone from Department of Motor Vehicles to explain to us that that can't be happening. That never happened. So, you know, the police, why would they just don't do it? That's all.
You know,
They should. I mean, but don't forget, people who do that are police. And we're always talking about how police have to be stopped. And those trucks that do those things, like park right opposite another truck, or park when they could have pulled over to the side, they don't park so that they don't have that traffic when they're leaving, these are just bullies. And bullies have to be dealt with. And the police were the people that were supposed to be the ones who dealt with the bullies, and they're just not doing it.
And the way to deal with them is not necessarily just a fine, but if you get enough, tickets against you, maybe you lose your.
The owner has to be the one. The owner. No, listen.
You know what happens? I'll tell you what happens. Because I do a lot of renovation and I work with a lot of contractors. What they do is they factor into their bid how many tickets a day or how many tickets a week they're going to get. They factor that into their bid, and the person who's hired, they don't pay.
But here's the situation. And Gail Stringer got next year. It turned out 60% of other violations as well. And so then they stopped doing that. But hopefully Gail said that she wants to put that back.
That is just like the situation where when you stop people at the turnstiles for fare evasion, police have found they have much more serious crimes. And some are even carrying loaded weapons. So, you know, let's not get into that. Yes, Rich.
So I've been living in the city my whole life and lived in this neighborhood for decades, and I have never seen so much of the roadbed dug up at the same time. Recently, 86 in Lexington, up and down Lexington, both sides of the north side and the south side of East 86. 10th Avenue recently, 11th Avenue above 59th Street. What's going on now on West End and 4th, 95th. So obviously, I don't know what all of this stuff is. Some of it, I'm sure, is DOT. Some of it maybe
mostly gas lines.
Maybe there's even other city agencies are making.
It's mostly gas lines. It's kind of putting in new gas lines to all the buildings. Well, that's what that is.
Well, the thing is.
And new water lines.
And you can see Con Ed's name on a lot of the sawhorses. So.
Yeah.
Well, in some cases not. The thing is, maybe this all needs to be done, but I think the city needs to be told that within some agency there has to be like a master chart of all of the work being permitted. Can I finish that sentence? So that we prioritize, and maybe it all should be done soon, but some of it clearly must be more urgent than others, and to just regulate the permitting so it's not all happening at the same time. Somebody should be able to say, all right, you go next after him, but you gotta wait.
Doesn't that happen?
No.
No, but it's
Not going the underbed infrastructure. Work side and that sort of stuff. But the city doesn't look at those two things as, you know, overlap. I understand for drivers it is, but they're in completely different neighborhoods, different community boards, and they don't see it as an issue. They would not do something on West End Avenue and Broadway at the same time, but they will do something on West End and Lexington at the same time.
But 2 or 3 things on West End or any other street shouldn't be happening.
It's all one project. It is one project going all the way up West End Avenue.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they do all at the same time.
That's right. I mean, there's the work they have to do, they have to do all at once, and it's very disruptive. I know, it's incredible.
I mean, I'm not representing Community Board 8, but they dug up East 86th Street when they put in the select bus service and put in all the machines, and then now again, of course, it's dug up again. So East 86th Street is really getting it.
And,
Right.
and you know, the thing of it is, I'm at 800 West End, which is between 98 and 99. We're in the process of putting in new gas lines. They dug up the street once for the gas lines. They put down new tar. They're going to come back and then actually put the gas in. But we had to wait a certain number of months because they only dig up the avenues once in a while because they then resurface. So we had to wait. It's a 5-year period, I think, for every time they resurface the whole street. We were 4 years. We had to wait a full year. There was some, but all of West End Avenue is a mess. I live there, I work there, it is insane. It's going to be over another half a year or so.
Yeah, in 2018, beginning of 2018.
Yeah, so we just have to
Does
bring
anybody know
it there
why it is that Con Ed has to do so much?
because
enforcement
they
all
have
at the
to
same
do it all at once because of the way they connect everything. They can't do it in pieces. It's how the gas lines are connected to one another. They can't do my building and then hop skip it over 10 blocks to somebody else's building because that line has to service everybody's building. So that's the problem.
And like the MTA, we have an aging infrastructure, and it's all coming due now. So we're up against that.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Yes, a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, everyone.